you check the children? Show a little match sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And Jaime Fuego here.
And we are here to review the newest season of The Twilight Zone, produced by Jordan Peele. We recently put out our review of the first season because we just never reviewed it a year ago. It took that long for this guy
My fault.
to get around to it.
My
but
fault.
we jumped right on the second season, and I think we're going to have sort of a repeat of the review of season one, even though I didn't stick through the entire review of season one because it had been a year since I'd watched it. I did let everyone know at the beginning that I enjoyed season one because I didn't have, I don't know if it's because of this, but I enjoyed it because it's a good anthology series that didn't necessarily have to be centered around technology like Black Mirror does. But I, just so you know, have never watched the original Twilight Zone series. So I don't have a basis to compare it to. Now, Fuego did. He had problems with the first season. Here we are in season two. Once again, I quite liked this season. I think there was only one episode that I did not like, the very last episode, that ironically is the only one that actually tied into the original black and white series.
Blasphemy.
It was not a good episode. However, the other 9 episodes were all enjoyable in my estimation. I legitimately don't know why someone wouldn't like this. So depending on what this guy says, we have a discussion to have.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So it was more the same for me. This is well produced, and you have a lot of familiar faces as far as the acting quotient goes. You've got great peeps together to direct in some cases. I was really looking forward to Osgood Perkins, the director of Blackcoat's Daughter, doing that 10th episode. Big disappointment. Honestly, my favorite was the two guys who did the 6th episode, I believe it was. They did Endless. Yeah. They did...
The 6th episode was easily the best.
Yeah, Spring, I think. I mean, anyway, those guys are great, man. But for the most part,
reviews for both those movies on the channel.
Yes, indeed. There's a lot of half-baked storytelling, stuff that just didn't resonate with me, cheesy ideas that I feel like I've seen before in a lot of cases, like especially the Topher Grace episode. There were, and really, even though I loved the whole like undersea aspect of that aforementioned episode with Joel McHale, there still was not an episode that resonated with me like Replay from the first season, which is really the highlight of the entire series so far, and has a lot to say as far as current social climate and stuff like that. So. Did I hate it based on how married I am to the original series and to its lesser degree the 80s version? The early 2000s on the UPN that had, oh boy, Forrest Whitaker hosted it if I recall correctly. That was just awful. This is at least better than that series, the 2000s, the early 2000s version. But I don't know, man. I'm glad you liked it though. I'm honestly so just connected with that original series that it does make it tough for me to enjoy a lot of this. And I don't know.
Why
I
you
feel
like anthologies so much, and it's a perfectly fine anthology. It's like
I like
it's
it. Fine. It's fine. That's the best way I can describe it. It's fine, but it's nothing groundbreaking. And
it's better than the last season of Black Mirror,
which I never watched. Yeah,
it was bad. The most recent season of Black Mirror was not good.
It was the first one produced exclusively by Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's when Americans take over a great UK property, but it's. If it was going under another name, maybe I would be a little bit less judgmental, because it's a moniker and a mantle of sorts that really carries a lot of heft in the genre.
Baggage to this, though.
But
that's
not
judging on its own merit.
Thing. Even under a different name, I wouldn't have rated it higher. I would have been like, it's pretty good, but it's really nothing I feel like I haven't seen before.
I just like it. Again, I like storytelling that just takes tropes that we know and turns them on their heads, and that's what these Twilight Zone anthologies tend to do. And so let's just go through. We'll go through real quick.
Episode.
So the first episode is Meet in the Middle.
I hear voices.
Yeah, this is one where there's a dude that is not doing well dating, and he suddenly starts to hear the voice of another woman in his head who can hear him back. And so they have this long distance sort of relationship develop, and it builds to this meeting that doesn't go the way he's planning. And I absolutely really enjoyed where it ended, because when I realized what was actually going on a little bit before the character did, I was like, Oh, that's so good. Plus, Gillian Jacobs from Community plays the female part, so
Did we ever even see her?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
yeah, towards the end, yeah.
I just wasn't even sure if that was actually her or not because, I couldn't put a voice to a name or anything. This was one where the thing with Twilight Zone and a lot of anthology, like horror, suspense, sci-fi of this regard is there's going to be a twist. And in this, the thing that I disliked so much about it was the predictability and the fact that I knew it was going to end badly. I knew that there had to be a catch.
But did you know that was going to be I figured that out in the last 15 minutes.
The specifics of what ended up happening and the manipulation that ends up going down with her and him, I mean, I can't say I was surprised, but I was... Okay. What happened? Not surprised. How it happened... I didn't expect that to the extent of what goes down.
When the last segment...
I don't know if we're spoiling or not.
No,
so
we're not. No. When the last segment happened, I was like, it would be really messed up if this is what was actually happening. And then that's where it went. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Well, you do find something out halfway through that I'm sure you expected too. The fact that these two are having this mental conversation throughout, and you're like, okay, somebody's in a different situation than the other character without spoiling it. And I was just like, well, duh. I mean, having been in that position before.
But I liked it. Again, I dug it. So let's move on to episode 2. This was World Maintenance with Marina Baccarin. Now, this one, I wasn't as big a fan as the other episodes. So this is the one with Deadpool's girlfriend.
Okay, yeah, who was also in V.
Yep.
This one I liked a little bit more.
This felt old school Twilight Zone-y.
Yes.
Which is part of why it didn't jive as much with me.
Yeah,
but
because I
still thought it was good.
Yeah, it's about... This was one that I enjoyed a little bit more, I must admit. I mean, it's about this woman who realizes she's an avatar in this, big virtual, alternate world of sorts. And
like an oasis, if you have seen Ready Player One.
And I just heard the sequel to that book.
Ready Player 2.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one that I enjoyed a little bit more because it harkened... It was a story that I hadn't seen something specifically like this before, which is why this is probably in my top 3 of the season as far as ones that I thought they were doing something a little more groundbreaking, a little bit more different, and I dug her performance a lot. And there is a heart-wrenching moment about halfway through where you get a reveal about another woman that she meets, and I don't know, this, and also the proposition and the choice that she has to make near the end of it, and it's like, do you leave or do you stay? Where you've accomplished a lot more in this regard, and I don't know, the vicarious virtual living. This actually had a lot more to say, in my opinion, on a larger scale.
This could have been a Black Mirror episode.
No, easily, most definitely. And this was more in the spirit of the original show. So this one I will actually give some props to.
Okay. 3 is okay. So this one was interesting.
Is this the one with Ethan Embry?
Yes.
I hated.
I liked
this
it.
was probably the worst episode of the season. Aside from the 10th man.
Disagree.
And I love Ethan Embry too, man.
So this is about a guy who is a simp, who is basically, he's got a beautiful girlfriend that he doesn't want to leave him, and so he's failing at all of his attempts to make money.
Well, he's an actor too.
Yeah, he's
failing
an actor.
Miserably.
Yep, failing miserable actor. He decides to try and rob a bank, and when he does, he accidentally swaps bodies with the bank teller. While his body gets captured by the cops because he's so bad at it, he escapes in the body of the bank teller, and he realizes that he can swap bodies with anyone by staring at them in the eye. Meanwhile,
he just now realizes this, by the way.
But they swap into his body, and so they keep jumping to his body while the last person jumps back to their body as he moves along, and that's how the detective of the story eventually tracks him down. I thought it was a well-crafted body swap, bank heist little story. No one's done it quite this way before, and so I dig when things are going outside the box. Granted, Ethan Embry was much better in the Devil's
Candy. Yeah. I mean, I honestly go back to Can't Hardly Wait with that guy.
Whatever.
So,
But
yeah.
So tell me, why didn't you like it?
I thought the concept of being ill-explained was just dumb. And while it was
You
interesting,
got 45 minutes. It doesn't have to explain why it's happening.
but it just is suddenly happening.
That's what Twilight Zone is. Did every Twilight Zone episode in the old series explain why it happened?
Give me at least the slightest bit that even just a couple lines of dialogue as to why this is suddenly happening. The desperation of his situation perhaps brings out the manifestation.
Again, tell me how many episodes of the original series told you why what happened.
Not as many, man, but I just this one did not do it for me. The concept was not compelling. I thought it was just kind of silly.
That's fair. See, that's a fair reason.
And I didn't feel a sense of like dread or urgency or being on my seat. I very quickly stopped caring, although I will give some of the actors credit in like being in a different body and playing a person other than themselves, especially once the kid near the end of the episode, the kid and the old man, and when you're, and I was amused by the finale of this, but although I was just like, oh really, that's who said girlfriend has been seeing, just the convenience of that bit. I was like, that's kind of funny, but
that was convenient, but okay.
Yeah. Although it was funny to finally get the acting gig in the different bodies sort of thing. That made me chuckle actually. Yeah, that was funny.
All right, so the fourth episode was basically American Idol with a cursed coin. I thought, again, being a fan of those kinds of talent shows, or at least once upon a time I was, recently having just watched Eurovision, the Will Ferrell movie about that kind of thing, I dug this. Again, a lot of this season was spins on stories that we've seen before.
Yeah.
I don't mind that if it's done differently enough. I really don't. Again, it's the whole Elseworlds thing. I've seen Superman done well and many times, but I've also seen it done well slightly differently. So that's what I enjoyed, and that's the same reason I like the Topher Grace one when we get to that, because of the different viewpoint. It's a similar story, but it's different. Oh yeah, well in that one they for sure did. But with this one, it's about a wannabe musician that basically happens across a Lady Gaga type in the park who gives her a coin,
former singer actually,
and then kills herself. And all of a sudden, the musician with the coin can't even finish a song without everyone around her clapping out of insane adoration. Thank you. And so her career skyrockets, but it's like, is it worth the fact that no one's actually listening to her actual music?
Yeah, and her one song that she is known for, which is just like nails on a chalkboard, and even when she has that crappy performance or she didn't think she was at her best, the fact that everybody still was praising the hell out of her. This was another one where a tired trope of a story that I had seen before, and the utter predictability of the fact that she's going to pass it on to somebody close to her probably, which in turn...
The end was very predictable, though.
Yeah, and also how she reacts after passing it along, and the jealousy. And so this is one where, hey, performances weren't bad, but it was just so familiar, and I didn't feel like it deviated enough within this concept to really... And I don't really like those competition shows. I never have watched them.
No, I can give you those. I can give you that on this one.
I was amused to see homie from Reno 9/11.
Yeah.
And,
okay, so here's the funny thing about that. The thumbnail of this episode had Thomas Lennon in the thumbnail, who is from Reno 911, but you can't quite tell. I was like, is that Thomas Lennon or is that Paul F. Tompkins, another really funny comedian? And it turns out that Paul F. Tompkins is also in that episode in a little bit part. Yeah. So it was really funny how that worked out. But
that actually makes me want to chime in really quickly with the fact that some of the descriptions of these episodes actually gave away a bit of the twist. The very first episode where they're like, they're hearing each other's voices in their heads, but it's not what it seems. I'm like, oh, well, obviously, come on, guys.
It's Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it is.
So episode 5 is, okay, this was a really good one.
I actually really liked.
This was a new girl in high school.
It's a little CWE for me, but I still
has powers, apparently, or is obsessed with possible powers, and basically the leader of the popular bitch girl group ends up having powers. And so how does that play out? They form a friendship, but popular girl's friends won't accept her, and but they're the whole time trying to train, and the new girl is like, let's see what powers you can do. Let's see if you can do this. Let's see if you can do this. It's very much like Chronicle was, or even Shazam,
similarities.
Right? When they're out trying to test his powers and stuff like that. But the reason that I love this, and again, this episode and episode 6 alone are almost reasons enough to say that season 2 is a success, because they're so strong. The end of this episode is such a gut punch. It was honestly, in my opinion, Sixth Sense-ian level of gut punch, because when it happened, I was literally like, oh man. And I really, really loved it. It was such a well-told story, because it it jukes you, it fakes you out at numerous times to make you think you know where it's going, but you don't.
Yeah, I hated the cruelty of kids in this, and yet I felt like it was very, very well portrayed and epitomized. That I saw the final twist coming to a degree. I just didn't know how and when it was going to transpire, and it ties in with a key. And it also, like the bigger shock for me was a drinking and smoking scene up in this area that they've infiltrated, and they're like the young girl is kind of being corrupted by the bitch squad, so to speak, and something happens with her. Yeah, that scene,
awesome.
I knew it was coming, and I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna happen. And when it did, I was just like, whew.
The fact that you're like, oh, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, and then it happens, you're still like, ah!
Yeah, I cringed, man.
Yeah.
I totally cringed. But the chemistry between our two lead girls, the venomousness of the bitch squad, like you said, this is the other episode of the couple we've mentioned that I think is one of the strongest, and one that maybe if there was a lot of episodes I felt predictable and I didn't like, this and a couple of the aforementioned, that makes it more of a success. But on to 6, which is where
6 is, I think, the best of the season.
Yeah, easily, and the most drastically different too. The
It's-
most like hardcore horror.
It is hardcore horror, but it's cool. It's like if you combined Underwater and Deep Blue Sea, but the sharks could get into the laboratory as well without needing water. It's basically the first time any story on video has made a villain of octopi.
Yeah.
There's the giant squid from 20,000 Leagues, sure, not the same species, y'all.
Yeah.
This makes an octopus species legitimately scary. I have never been scared by an octopus in my life, but this thing made this species of octopus genuinely scary.
Some of the stuff that it does in this, and the effects were really
so
solid,
good. The
actually.
camouflage and Joel McHale leading the charge of the crew.
Yeah. We got Lars from Rancid acting in this. He was the broody, tattooed guy who was listening to ska in this episode. Anyway,
man, this was a really, really good story.
And also just the Americans and the Chinese representative girl who's there with them, and the power play between the two of them. This was a nuanced and leveled story, and I texted this guy immediately in our little message thread. I was like, you need to watch this right now, and he's like, I'm watching something else.
I'll get to it when I get to it. But it's nice that I did that, because I didn't necessarily remember when I put it on that was the one.
Yeah, because I didn't want to
as
have
soon as it started, I was like,
yeah.
damn, this is awesome, because we're hot off of Underwater, which was a very similar plot that I loved as well.
Yeah, one of my favorites from the year for horror.
All right, moving on to number 7. So 7, I actually quite like 7 as well. So 7 is about a grieving couple that have lost their daughter, and all of a sudden aliens show up, or they're having this weird sort of light above their house, and then a creature shows up that's camouflaged and really terrifying looking, shows up, and it's like eating some furniture when they first see it.
Yeah, it's almost like a slug, rodent kind of thing.
But it starts to change and adapt, and basically it turns into eventually it struggles, and it chases after them because it starts to use their daughter's voice. And it starts to change into their daughter, but like a translucent version of her at first. And so you can kind of see through her, like you could see through the slug creature. And then she solidifies, and she, for real, eventually, the whole thing is cool because it's trying to break into the room that they're hiding from it. And, the mom hears the daughter's voice and wants to go and let her in, and the dad's like, no, don't. The dad, by the way, played by Kristopher Meloni from Happy,
and Jenna Elfman, who I hadn't seen in something in forever.
Exactly,
man. She
Jenna
was the
Elfman.
mother.
So good actors doing this, but she wants to let him in, and he's like, it's not our daughter. You saw it. It's not. She's like, I don't care.
He's the voice of reason.
It's our chance to talk to her again and stuff. And when they open the door, she's turned all the way into the daughter. And then there's frank discussions about no, I'm an alien, but I have harnessed your daughter's energy, and now I can
also taken her memories.
When
she looks through all her stuff.
I can be your daughter now, and we came to conquer, but now I don't want to, and stuff like that. It just was such a wonderful, complex story about grief and aliens that I never it caught me completely by surprise, and I absolutely loved this episode.
Yeah, I didn't love it. I found some merit in it from the performance and also the essence of manipulation that is employed by this creature. And also, she says one thing, this alien that's taken on the form of the daughter says one thing, but the ending, in my estimation, leads you to believe it might have been otherwise without spoiling when you get that final shot of all the people walking with different other characters. So, while I didn't... this was an interesting character
That's such a
study.
Twilight Zone ending.
Yes, no, it was an the ending was what made me appreciate it a little bit more, because I honestly wanted more creaturey coolness like we got at the beginning, and then the middle half, the manipulation, the grieving, and all those different character study nuances and whatnot. This one I didn't hate, but this one I just thought was okay.
Okay,
So,
fair
yeah.
enough. Episode number 8. Okay, so it's Small Town. Oh, okay, so it's called Small Town, and it's Damon Wayans Jr.
Yeah.
This was actually quite like the Dollhouse episode from Creepshow, a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's so Damon Wayans Jr. plays this guy in this small town whose wife was the mayor and was doing a kick-ass job, but she died, and now it's a couple, maybe a year or two later, and the replacement is just letting the town fall apart, and he's just so sad. He's by himself up in the loft of the church, and so while he's up there one time, he finds this giant table with a model of the whole town on it, a la the beginning of Beetlejuice. And what he realizes when he tries to clean something off with some water, he tries to clean something off, and then it rains outside his window, right where he was pouring the water. So he realizes whatever he does to the town on the model actually happens to the town. So he starts to clean up the town, and then the mayor that he and everyone hated because he's not doing anything starts to take credit, and it becomes sort of a battle like that. And this is definitely not as horror-esque as a lot of the other episodes tend to be. But
not
I
really
still
at all,
kinda liked
aside
it.
from a tarantula being put on the board.
Giant
and stuff
spider
like
second.
that.
But I still, again, for an anthology show, I think that this was a good turn of the anthology.
I didn't like it. I thought this was one of the most boring episodes. And the fact that, I mean, at the end, not a lot really happened, honestly.
No.
They weren't really in that different of a position by the end of it. And the smug kid that they had in this, who was doing all, like, the street art and stuff like that, he just really rubbed me the wrong way throughout the entirety of it. It was interesting to see the girl from Under the Dome as his mother, the Hispanic chick who was working at, I think she was, like a diner worker or something like that. But, yeah, this one, I mean, I didn't mind the Wayans dude. He wasn't bad, but I mean, this was.
He was
one...
on The New Girl. That's where I knew him from.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this was just one where it felt kind of eventless in a lot of ways, and also after having seen that Creepshow episode, which was immediately when I saw the miniature of the town, I thought of that dollhouse of hers, and I'm sure they were concurrently in development, so I can't really discredit to that regard. But yeah, this was. I read a Collider on their .com, not the video people anymore, but yeah, their .com ranked all the episodes, and they actually ranked this episode last in the season.
Really?
I don't. It's pretty bottom barrel for me, you know, despite
not
being
the best.
decently produced. Yeah.
It's not
It was
the
just
best.
uneventful once again. So
now
we're to
that leads
ninth
us
episode.
to which is called Try. This is the one with Topher Grace, and this is basically what if you were watching Groundhog Day from Elaine from Seinfeld's perspective, right? That's who was in the original.
It was
Groundhog Day, right?
Andy McDowell.
Is that not who plays Elaine?
No, that's Julia
They
Louis-Dreyfus.
look,
They do look very
they look
similar.
exactly
Yeah,
alike.
they've got the brown frizzy hair.
But thank you for
look
the
going
correction.
on.
So
Sorry.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus. No, it's good.
Andy McDowell.
Andy McDowell is the one that was actually in the movie, and it's basically from her perspective. Except, what if Bill Murray was a bit more unhinged? And that's what Topher Grace plays. So, yeah, I really dug this one. You know, a girl is saved from a truck by a random stranger who is saying all the right things and, you know, just knows all the right authors that she loves and is the perfect person. And it turns out the reason why is because he's a guy that's reliving the same day over and over again, and he tells her that that's why, and this is the first time he's being totally honest and explaining it to her. So it's that particular day. You're getting one day of the Groundhog Day scenario from the girl's perspective, when the guy, as if Bill Murray just snapped and is like, this didn't work out like I wanted. I'm going to kill you this time. And that's kind of how it goes. And I really liked that. Again, it's the same thing as the Elseworlds. Fuego should appreciate it for the other turn of the wheel side of things.
Yes.
It's just a different perspective on a trope that is now a trope because of Groundhog Day. But I really liked it. We haven't seen that version of the story before, so I'm on it. I dig it.
Yeah, I didn't like it. It was too predictable for me, man. I like the fact that he starts out sweet, or seemingly sweet. I knew from the get-go he was going to be creeper status, 100%, because it's the Twilight Zone. Yeah, but I mean, in a time where we've done Groundhog Day, Happy Death Day, a Supernatural episode, the recent Palm Springs. I mean, this is
Palm Springs came out after this episode.
I know
Just
they
saying.
were presumably concurrently in development. Okay,
just saying.
But,
just saying.
I just knew what was going to happen, and I'm always appreciative when the Twilight Zone gives me a twist that I don't expect in any iteration of the show, this being the fourth one. But when you see it a mile away, and dare I say, especially with the skin color of the particular person, both of them, yeah, I'll go there, unfortunately.
Okay.
I don't know. It was just, there was nothing about this that surprised me. Topher Grace, he does play like a wormy schmuck pretty well, so I'll give his performance that. And I mean, the lead actress was solid, especially when she starts to gauge, what is really going on, and she was a beaut. And they had interesting chemistry as the dynamic shifted. It was just the predictability aspect. They lost me because of that. So,
all right, fair enough. Now the only episode we're going to agree on, which is episode 10, which was, I just didn't like this because the effects of the aliens were so stupid, because it was literally a sequel to apparently a really old episode where they had no choice but to make
Serve
stupid
Man,
aliens.
my favorite episode of the original
All right, so
series.
you talk about this one. I just didn't like it. I thought it was
Yeah.
a dumb story. I didn't care. It was poorly presented. Blah.
The biggest problem with this is the fact that if you go into it completely blind and you watch it, it's definitely a comment on commercialism and various other things that I actually thought was pretty decent until we get the twist with said aliens, which they spoiled in an article on Bloody Disgusting. Yeah, they said, Osgood Perkins' episode is going to bring back the aliens from To Serve Man. So the twist of the episode is completely lost because they spoil it before. If I hadn't gone in already knowing that, maybe I would have been a little bit less judgmental. But boy, the fact that they Borg queened it, the fact that, there was so much dumb stuff. The look of the aliens, the motivation of them not even being properly explained. There was just so much I disliked about this episode. Anything I've missed that you can comment on?
I can't say anything that's appreciable in that one. So,
but for the 3 episodes that I mentioned, hey, if I still found some merit in a few, if you want to watch this and some of the Star Trek content, and CBS All Access does have some interesting stuff already on lockdown, the upcoming Stand miniseries. So yeah, some people will not be as judgmental about this series as me, and if you like anthology horror, hey man, check it out. Hey man or woman, check it out, give it a shot. It's all goodsy. Art is subjective, as I always contend on this program. So
indeed. So if you guys watched the second season of Jordan Peele's The Twilight Zone, let us know what your thoughts are in those comments down below. If you're still avoiding it because you're like Fuego in that sense, let us know your thoughts down there as well. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button and subscribe to make sure you don't miss other episodes going forward. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias a Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.